Na, 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 na. Little trouble and only had to play it once. All right, let's get into it. Get some music. This would seem like a video for that. And bounce up out of there. So, my child says, now this is for anyone. This is if it's you and your child says that, hey, your child said that. If your child was like, you're not my daddy, what would you do? What would you do if the child was like, you know what? You had a little 7, 8 year old, and you was like, hey, you know what? You're not my dad. What would you do? Would you stay? Or would you bounce? Well, okay, so kids they'll say anything, won't they? They will tell the truth. And the thing about it is, a kid will say this, uh, and it has happened. And when it comes out of a child's mouth, what what is the reaction of the father? Oh, I don't want to play that type of music. It's like a jazz. What is the reaction of the father? The reaction of the father is usually this: hurt, disappointment. Looks at the mother to see if the mother is going to, back it up, or is she going to, say something to the child and correct the child? If the mother does not correct the child, then the father's like, oh, really? Okay, so I like to use myself. I had this happen to me. This happened to me. And when it happened to me, of course, for one, I had went down to, the ATM. I think my daughter was like 6 or 7. Uh, and I went down to the ATL to see her, Yeah. I used to catch the Greyhound and go down there from here. So it's an 8-hour trip. It's even longer on the Greyhound. It's like 12 hours. It's just a big hassle. And I used to catch Spirit Airlines, and oh my God. So I used to catch the plane, and then it was 2 trips, and you would end up catching a plane from Florida to Atlanta. And one of those trips, thank God I wasn't on it, but that's, when I was doing it, that's when the Spirit Airlines crashed into the Everglades. And of course, everybody died. If not on impact, then you died from, alligators. So, yeah, I was taking those trips. I was catching Spirit Airlines to go down and see my daughter, but nonetheless, on one of those trips, oh, yeah, this is a good song right here. On one of those trips, into the ATL, my daughter actually said that to me. We were going into a store. She wanted something, and I didn't want to get it for her. She said, "You're not my dad." I just looked down at her, and then I looked at her mother. And her mother didn't say anything. She just kind of looked at me. And another time, my daughter had said the same thing. She had said it to me more than once. So I started to think, it's not my child. And then I had to ask the mother, and she was like, well, she's yours. And I was like, it's not my little shorty. Now, to this day, I think that she is. But I still have that in the back of my head, because she should have jacked her up. Like, yo, don't ever say that. You know what I'm saying? But that isn't the way it went down for me. So I know if it happened to me, it happens to other people. But when it happened to me, I'm telling you, I looked at the mother to see if the mother was going to back her up, or if the mother was going to jack her up, pretty much. And, my little girl had said it, a few times to me. So it made me think, this is not my little girl. Now, I never went ahead and did a DNA test or none of that other stuff. I just, once things soured between us, it was clear that I wasn't needed because I would keep going down there. And one time I went down there to see him and I was locked out in the rain, and she knew I was outside. And she knew I was coming. She locked the door, and she left, locked the door to her apartment, and went somewhere, and I had to stand there in the rain for a long time. So just different things had happened, and I'm just like, you know what, this isn't my child. And it took me a long time to, to get that in my head. Like, it's very possible that this is not my child. Now when I look at her, I'm like, you do kind of look like me, maybe, but... So I have this in my head simply because of the way that I was treated years and years and years, and my daughter telling me this years and years and years. So, what it does to the man is it creates such a gap in doubt and such a rift between the child and the father that the slightest can, set that relationship off course, where you just don't want to, you don't want to feel that again because it hurts so bad. You don't want to, you just don't want to do anything. You're just like, I know you're going to tell me that I'm not your dad, and you're a grown up now, and I'm struggling to try to be with you, and I know you're going to be with me sometime, and then the other times you don't want to talk to me. You don't want to talk to me on Facebook. You don't want to, and for years you do this, then you show up. No, to hell with it. I'm done. So you're not my kid. But, in your mind, you're like, I think it is, but just the way you've been treated, you're like, just forget about it and keep going. And that's the hurting part, because if it really is your child, you're hurt so bad, and the mother did not try to help you. She did just cruel things to just make you believe this ain't your child. So the father is just like, to hell with it. I don't need to put up with this. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's what, once the child gets older, and just like, I really do need my dad, because you can have people help your child grow up, but they really want to know where they came from. Like, they want to know more about you, especially if it's a girl. They want to be, they still want that, they still have that internal where they want that protection, even though they acted out and been promiscuous, will curse and scream and, run around town half naked, do whatever they want to do. They still want to know their father, especially when other girls, are with their mother and fathers, and they're wondering why you're tripping on your dad. Like, why are you, like, what did he do? You know what I'm saying? So, eventually, they snap back to reality, like, yo, I do want to know about my father. Well, guess what? All that stuff that the mother has put into your head, and then you went with that. Fathers are humans. They're not machines. You can't just erase the data and then put new data in there and it acts differently. It's a whole human you're dealing with. So if you mothers are out there and you put this into your child's head, you are setting a rift between them that the mother and the daughter will not be able to fix. Even if the father does show the daughter love, that father will always have in the back of his head, this is not my child. Listen, that voice will never leave. That image of when you said it and how you said it, that whole day will never leave the father. So just take it from somebody who happens to. If you women make this brutal mistake, and you can look on court TVs and all that, where the woman says to, the dad, like, this ain't your child. If you say that to a man, that this is not your child, that father is never going to love that child with all his heart. Never. He may deal with the child, he may love the child, but there's always going to be a piece of him that's going to hold back, and it's all your fault. If that child says that, especially at a young age, that child didn't make that up. You got that from the mother. And if you mistreat that father when he comes around to see that child, you are doing the daughter a serious disservice, because when she gets older, she is going to act out. She's going to be promiscuous. She's going to run around with little boys and they're going to do whatever they want to her. She's not going to want to listen because she's being rebellious. So the first thing she's going to use against you is her body. So these little boys are going to be all up in your daughter. I'm just telling you the truth. They're going to be all up in her. And when you get her back, she's not going to be the innocent little girl that you used to comb her hair and talk about, stuff you want to hang out and do as father. No, she's going to be completely changed. Her language is going to be changed. You're going to be like, where is this? What happened to my child? Well, your child was getting, banged out by the local boys because, the mother allowed her to be like that. That father's going to be hurt. There's no recovery from a pain like that. So you ladies can play games with children if you want to, but eventually that child's going to grow up. And when that child grows up, that father is not in that child's life. That little girl is going to be searching for the rest of her life on what it's like to be with her real father. And she's going to reach out in different ways to try to get that gratification. She's going to reach out to men who look like her father. And they're going to do whatever they want because they don't love your child. They have no love for your child. There's nobody out there who loves your child like you. If you love your child the right way and you want to rear your child in the right way, there's nobody who loves your child like you. They don't care. Whenever that child walks out the house, that child is walking out the house with something valuable. Especially if they're a teenager. Everybody's watching that teenager. There's a little girl who walks out the house. Everybody is watching that little girl to see what that little girl does. That little 12-year-old girl walks out the house. You better believe that people, they're looking at her. In one way or another. Even women too. They're looking at that girl in one way or another. And they have one thought to another thought. And it ranges between, I hope she's okay, to how can I do whatever? How can I take advantage of the situation? Can I, sell her candy? Can I get my little 12-year-old cousin? Can he, start dating her? There's just all kind of ranges of thought that goes through people's heads when they see a child walk out the house. It just is what it is. And you don't know if they're safe thoughts or you don't know if they're bad thoughts coming from people. And that's the biggest problem. Because that child doesn't know either. And then once something happens, you try to figure out, how did this happen? Well, a lot of it is because of the way you raise your child. And if you take the protection away from that child, if you take the strength of a father away from that child, then that child's going to walk headlong into trouble. And I don't care where country you're from, what side of town you're from, it is all the same thing. You can look on some of these videos and you can see what I'm talking about. If that dad wasn't there, then it's lights out for that kid. And a lot of you women that's what you're doing. You don't love the father, you don't want nothing to do with the father, or you're mad at the father, so you'll put in the child's head something that just isn't true. And that child will walk around believing this because it's a child, doesn't know any better. And then they'll walk headlong into trouble. You should have listened to your parents. No, well, my parents were separated, they weren't there. Well, I wonder why that is. And it's not all on the mother, but I'm saying, taking the strength and the protection and the guidance that a father has away from a child is dangerous on every level. It is just dangerous. I'm just letting you know. If that little girl says, or that little boy says, you're not my father, you just strip that father of his strength. The father's strength is spiritual. It's not how much weight you lift. It's not. Because you see a lot of people who don't lift weights will go berserk if you go around their kid. Look at what Kanye West did when that photographer went and tried to take a picture of his girl. He jumped right on it. He was watching it the whole time. Her and her little friend was, being little girls as they do. And the photographer just came up out of nowhere and knelt beside the little girls and decided to take it. But Kanye West was like, yo, you get up out, like, I know you're the photographer here, but you out your mind. You can't come within that close to my kid. You out your mind. You better go somewhere. No, see, that's what I'm talking about. Now, some women have been like, oh, that's cute, but the father's just like, hell no. Absolutely not. When you tell your little girl or your little boy, or even put it in their head, anything like that, you start mistreating that father, and that father hears those words, you're not my dad. All of his strength, all of his spiritual strength starts to go in another angle. It's just like a river. You just dam up one area, that strength to go somewhere. I'm telling you the truth. It will go. It's the same way if somebody walks into a relationship where they are not the father, but they adopt a kid. They adopt these children and they're like, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep these children safe, to keep them fed, to keep them clothed. I'm going to do what a dad does because it's a spiritual thing. So what's he do? He goes and gets extra shifts because the kids, they're tweens. They want to play sports. They need shoes, basketballs, and all other things that tweens need. So what's he do? I'm going to pick up some extra hours at the job. That way he can get you the nicest stuff so you can keep up with the other kids. Because kids will tease you when you come on the court with some bummy shoes. So, and you don't want your kid coming home like that, so you're just like, nah, if those shoes cost, whatever, I'm going to get you, boom. You're not going out there looking like a bum. Nah, here, you're not going to have these kids calling you no bum. No, you're going to be looking right. We're going to match their stride. And that's what you do. He's at the shop. They ask him if he wants some extra hours. He's like, I'm tired, but I'll take them. So he knocks out 2 or 3 extra hours a day. And because he knows what it's going to look like on a paycheck. Paycheck comes in, here's your shoes. You know what I'm saying? The son is like, thanks, Dad. The son doesn't really know all of what he's gone through. But let that son, even if it's adopted, come out his mouth and say, you're not my father. You think that father's going to go work those hours? That son is going to get Walmart shoes. And the kids are going to be like, what are those? And then that kid is not going to want to play those sports. And that kid's going to be like, why didn't you get me those shoes? And if the father is really honest, he's going to say, well, I'm not your father. You just live here. If you want those shoes, ask your father for them. And that relationship is going to have a rift in it. And the mother's going to step in and she's going to have to make a choice. Either I'm going to, say something to my husband that's going to be out of line, or I'm going to say something to my child that's going to be out of line. And she's going to have to make a choice right there and then because she's going to have to fix that. That's what happens when your child says, you're not my father. And that dad will never look at that child the same. Never. Even if it's his own, he will never look at that child the same. He'll do whatever it takes just to get you out the house. Just to raise you, to get you out the house. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to be resentful of you, but what he's going to do is the bare minimum. He doesn't want an unhappy home because he loves the mother and maybe the other child, but he's going to always have that in the back of my head. So you're not going to get extra out of him. You're not going to get extra blood, sweat, and tears out of that father. You're not going to do it. He's going to protect you because he has to. But if you come home with a bruised knee or something like that, he's not going to be the first one out the seat to try to figure out what's wrong with you. And he's probably going to tell you something like, yeah, you're going to have to be careful next time. Go put some water on it and get a Band-Aid. And that's going to be it. He's not even going to take a good look at it. Yeah, you got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? You know, and sit there with his remote in his hand. I'm telling you, you think, oh, it's cruel no. Because you pre-program that child to say what he's going to say. So mothers, be careful. Do not let your child utter those words. I don't care if it's an adopted father. Don't do it, because the father will never, ever, ever look at that child the same. He may deal with the child because he's dealing with you, but you better believe that he'll never look at that child the same if you say, or if that child says, you are not my father. It's your boy Tone 202. Peace.